You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Zeno Pucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Andy and Brian here with you. And as always, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Zeno Pucks. The first round of the playoffs is officially over. We're a couple days after that, and that was because we didn't want to record on Sunday without knowing the outcome of the Winnipeg and St. Louis series, Game 7. Not only that, we wanted to watch it together. We had prior plans yesterday evening as well, so today was our option to record for this week. Brian, what's up, dude?
Not much. It's a good thing we waited to record. That was a hell of a Game 7 between the two of those teams, St. Louis and Winnipeg, but we'll get to that in a little while. Before we talk about anything playoffs, there's just some general housekeeping stuff that we need to mention throughout the league. So we'll go down that list fairly quickly here, touch on a few things, and then we'll get to the playoffs, as that's obviously the hot button topic. So we'll start with one that just happened. The New York Islanders win the draft lottery and get the right to select first in the draft this year, which moving up 10 spots with only a 3.5% chance to win the lottery was nuts. So it'll be the Islanders, the Sharks, the Blackhawks, and then the Utah Hockey Club, who also got one of the lottery picks and moved up. So really interesting for the Islanders to move up. I don't want to say there's no consensus, because Matthew Schaefer is going to go number one overall more than likely, but this isn't like in years past where there was a very obvious number one guy, no two ways about it, like we've had in the last couple of years. But there's a lot of good players in the top five. I don't think any of these teams in the top five feel like they got fleeced by the Islanders moving up. I'm sure the Sharks would have liked the number one pick, but they're still going to walk away from this with a really good player, as are the Blackhawks and as are Utah, who are again got to jump up that list. So kind of crazy to see. It was weird how ESPN did the whole draft lottery. I kind of thought that was stupid, but that's American broadcasting for you. So that is what it is. But the Islanders again win the draft lottery. So after a year that was just an absolute train wreck for them, they take some solace in the fact that they're going to get an outstanding player here in the draft.
I saw people just ripping the NHL to shreds, saying you can't let shit like this happen. This is a disgrace.
That's why it's a fucking draft lottery. People are dumb as hell, and we'll quickly forget that the Penguins got to pick number one overall 2 out of 3 years, and then the 1 year in those 3 they didn't. They picked number 2. So yeah, I don't want to hear that crap.
Yeah, I mean it's solely for the purpose of preventing teams from tanking for draft picks. So it is what it is, and nothing you can do about it. Obviously, everybody wants their team to get a number one draft pick, but I'll take championships over that.
Well, yeah, and really, again, it's a lottery, so and nothing's guaranteed. And you know what? The teams that didn't win, again, these teams are still going to get really good players between, like I said, Chicago, San Jose. These groups are going to get really good players to come out of this, and so I don't think anybody should be upset. But the people that are, what's funny is a lot of the backlash you see from this are people who are fans of teams that are still in the playoffs. I'm like, you got your eyes set on the wrong thing. You should be looking forward towards the cup, not looking forward to the fucking draft. So people just like to complain about everything. But no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, you'd rather win a championship than win the draft lottery. But for these teams that don't make the playoffs, again, that's your potential silver lining, is moving up in the draft. And in the case of the Islanders, moving all the way up to number one, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So next thing on the list, we talked about the PWHL expanding to Vancouver previously, and now we found out recently that they're going to be expanding to Seattle as well. So a couple teams in the Pacific Northwest. Pretty exciting stuff. Vancouver and Seattle are very good hockey markets. Vancouver obviously makes sense, and Seattle has really shown up and shown out for the Kraken there. So I think putting a women's team there will do really well. I would assume in the next round of expansions, we'll see something out east in the form of Chicago, Detroit, something like that. Or hell, even Wisconsin would be nice to get a team. But Pittsburgh, or if they stay out west, Alberta, so you could see a Calgary or an Edmonton, something like that. But there's plenty of good markets. But it's good for this league that it's healthy enough and financially well off enough, and there's enough talent that they can add to teams like this after only 2 seasons.
Well, and that's healthy enough that there's people that want to invest in it too. That's the big thing. Yep. So I think it's cool that they're going to Pacific Northwest right now. Now that they're doing that, I say you focus on maybe putting a few more teams out west before you go Midwest area, kind of even out the playing field. But I'm excited to see what the future has in store for this league as a whole, because so far they've hit an absolute home run with the PWHL, and I think Seattle is an excellent hockey market, as Kraken fans have proved. So I think this is the right move, and I'm excited to see where it takes them.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see how it goes, and I'm interested to see how they do their expansion process now. I didn't look into what their expansion draft or whatever they're going to do, how it's all going to be set up. But again, it seems like the talent pool's there. Nobody seems to be worried about a lack of talent on the ice. So we'll see how it looks. And again, we'll see in a few years if they can add a couple more teams and push the league up to 10 teams. But again, to add 2 now, to have 8 teams in the league, it makes it feel, I don't want to say less cartoony, because that's not the right word, because the league it's good quality hockey, but it makes it feel like more of a competitive league, I guess. There's going to be
right.
Now there's going to be more teams in the same amount of playoff space. So everybody's going to have to fight a little bit harder. But this league in its infancy here is really doing well, and hopefully it can keep the momentum and keep building traction. It seems like women's hockey is growing more and more, as is the entire sport, quite frankly. But women's hockey is really gaining traction and on both sides of the border, and that's really good for the game. Obviously, it's big over in Europe as well. But over here, it's really starting to become front and center more than it ever has.
Yeah, I think the future is very bright for this league.
All right, back to the NHL. Couple of departures, if you will. I don't know if you want to call them firings, but first we'll mention Rob Blake in LA, since he hasn't been rehired. Look, Rob Blake's going to always be a beloved figure in LA as far as his tenure there as a player, but as his GM, in 8 seasons, he had 5 first-round exits and 3 times missing the playoffs, and again 4 in a row of those first-round exits that were at the hands of the Oilers, and 1 was to Vegas. It just didn't work out. They put together some pretty solid teams, but clearly Edmonton is their boogeyman, or they just didn't have a group good enough to get out of the first round. However you want to phrase it or put it, it wasn't good enough. And my opinion of LA, and we'll talk about them when we get to their first round series, but they need to burn the whole thing to the ground to ashes, and then burn the ashes, because something is not clicking there where it should be. This team on paper is not a bad team. They had a Vezina finalist goalie this year, and we talked about it before the playoffs. Kopitar had a great year. Doughty's been good since he's been back from injury. Like, he's been very effective. Quentin Byfield had an outstanding year. Obviously, they're getting good offensive performances from Kempe and Kevin Fiala, and guys like Gavrikov and Kuzmenko. They're getting contributions all over the lineup, but they get into the playoffs and it just falls flat on its face. So we'll talk about the Kings more later, but just crazy to see that a player who was a legend in LA is booted out after 8 unsuccessful years as GM.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to see, but like you said, he'll always have a spot in their hearts as a player. But you know what? Just because you were a hockey player doesn't mean you're cut out to be a GM. So.
Yep. The other big departure was out in Pittsburgh. Mike Sullivan team. It sounded like him and the team mutually agreed to part ways. And of course, no surprise that Sullivan didn't last long on the market. There was a bunch of teams that were after him right away. The New York Rangers are the winner in that department. They signed Mike Sullivan. I don't know what the dollar amount is, but it sounds like it's like a record-breaking number for a coach, which, I was interested to see if he'd go to Boston or not, but I think going to New York, that's a good fit for the coach and the team. The Rangers have a very skilled roster, a very talented team, and Sullivan has shown in the past he does well with a talented roster. I mean, he took the Penguins to back-to-back championships, and until things kind of tailed off with the roster the last 2 years, I mean, the team was great. They were always one of the better teams in the league. And again, 2 Stanley Cup championships is obviously in a row is nothing to sneeze at. So I think Sullivan will fit great in New York. And I think that team needs a wake up call, because there's too much talent there for them to be as bad as they were this year.
Yeah, especially coming off the season they had last year. It didn't really make any sense. So I'm always, we always say the coach is always the easiest scapegoat, but in this situation, I think it was right. And I think Sullivan's going to be a great addition in New York because they do have talent on that team. It's all about what they're able to do with it. So I think this is a good fit. And like you said, no surprise he didn't last long on the market.
Yeah. And for the Penguins, I mean, there's not much to say. I really don't think Kyle Dubas. I don't think Kyle Dubas knows what the hell he's doing. I just think he's throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks because he spun his tires with the Leafs for a long time. Built a pretty decent roster, but their best additions, really, other than the core four that they have, their best additions have now been under Brad Treliving. So. And Pittsburgh hasn't gotten any better at all with Kyle Dubas. Nobody until the end of time will ever understand that god awful Ryan Graves contract that just makes zero sense. It's such a mess. Jari's a terrible fucking goalie, and he's still there. I don't know. They've done pretty much nothing to get better, and then Kyle just talks out his ass in his press conferences and. I just don't think he knows what he's doing. That's the reality. But it's no coincidence that both teams he's been the GM of have struggled. So, and it's not all his fault. The players still have to play. But again, you look at dumb shit like the Ryan Graves contract and not launching Tristan Jarry into the Atlantic Ocean. Like, just there's so much room for improvement with this team, and it's not. He's making it harder probably than it needs to be. And I'm not saying I'm a GM or I know anything about running a team, but it's starting to kind of look clear that he doesn't really know either.
Yeah, I think especially these last couple of seasons are legitimate proof of that. So, and it's a very devoted fan base too. Yeah. So if nothing else, I always say do it for your fans. If nothing else.
Well, and he's got to stop trying to convince himself in Pittsburgh that this Erik Karlsson thing has worked out. It looked like it was a splash at first. The first season of it was arguably worse than this past year, but again, just really no improvement under him. The roster is kind of a mess. They don't have an answer in that they don't have anybody on the way, like coming through the pipeline. So, I mean, if not for Sid and Gino still playing great hockey, and Gino, from what I can tell, didn't even have the greatest season this year either. But I mean, if it wasn't for those guys, this team would probably have been one of the worst teams in the league. I mean, the fact that Sid just keeps playing like he's in his prime, no matter how old he is a credit to him. But it's a pretty damning indictment on this franchise that he's playing this well and the team is still this bad. I mean, it takes you kind of back to the early days of his career where he was putting up 120 points or whatever, and they were still one of the worst teams in the league. And kind of getting shades of that now. It's pretty frustrating to watch, even if you're not a fan of the team.
Right. And that just goes to show you too, you can have the best player in the world on your team, but it's a team sport through and through.
Yep. So we'll move on from that. We want to get to a couple retirements. First, kind of a sad note, Torrey Krug on the Blues. It seems like he is likely headed for retirement. He's been dealing with I want to say it was a foot or an ankle injury. And he missed this entire season, and we knew that going into the year that he was going to miss the whole season. And it was frustrating, but the idea was that he would take the whole season off, get his body right, get ready, and get back into hockey. And now it kind of seems like it just hasn't worked out. We saw the big comeback from Gabe Landeskog, and I think a lot of people were hoping for Torrey Krug, who was a very good defender at his best. But it unfortunately doesn't look like it's going to be in the cards for him. So he'll head to retirement with a couple trips to the Stanley Cup final under his belt. No championships, unfortunately, to show for it. But especially for a smaller guy, I'm always a big fan of rooting for the small guys. To be as small as he is and to be as effective as a defender as he was, it's a true testament to his heart and his skill level. So definitely will miss Torrey Krug being in the league. Is a firecracker of a player, great personality, and sucks to see a good career like that and be ended by an injury.
He was one of my favorite defensemen, obviously, when he played for Boston. I love the guy, played with a lot of heart, and like you said, just an outstanding personality too, but he was a very good offensive defenseman as well. He was very fast for a defenseman. I loved watching him play. And it sucks that we're at a point now where we're watching guys that we loved watching for all those years, seeing their careers come to an end. Especially, you hate to see it end because of injuries too. That's the other thing. When it happens naturally, then it does, but because you have a career plagued by injuries, that's what's sad.
Yep. So we'll see what happens. I mean, you never know. Things can change, but it certainly seems like it's pretty much a certainty that Krug's going to retire. Another guy that retired, Valtteri Filppula, for those of you who remember him, he hasn't been in the NHL in a couple of years. He's been playing over in Europe, obviously, but he's officially retired after 1,056 NHL games. The only current Finnish player to be part of the Triple Gold Club. So Olympic gold medal, which I had to dig to find, but I forgot Finland just won it a couple of years ago. Stanley Cup and World Championship. So good for Filppula, great player. Definitely one of those guys who was never a game breaker by any stretch of the imagination, but is a solid player. You could put him anywhere in your lineup. He was obviously he won the Stanley Cup with the Red Wings, but he was a huge part of all those good Tampa teams for years. And I mean, I don't think he wasn't on any of the teams that won the cup, but he was on the 15 team that went to the final, and just a really effective player, great center. And so I also did not know he was the only Finnish player to be part of the Triple Gold Club. But when you think about it, it makes sense because that Olympic gold is kind of hard to capture if you're not Canadian. So
right, yeah.
Yeah, with NHL players not being at the Olympics the last couple of years, I didn't even know that's when he won it. I didn't know he was on that team, but pretty cool that he was, that he got to, or to this point, he's the only one to be part of that. I think Alexander Barkov may have something to say about that once, if he can win a Olympic gold, but now with NHL players going to the Olympics, Finland's going to really have their work cut out for them. So we'll see how it goes for him. But for Filppula, again, another great career, 1,000 games, Stanley Cup, Olympic gold medal. Like, can't ask for much more as a player. So, and again, he didn't get it done with all those good Tampa teams in the mid 2010s, but man, was he a great player. So,
hey man, regardless, just to further your point about what a great player he was, over 1,000 games in the NHL doesn't happen by accident. So, he's also has one of my favorite names in hockey. I just love that last name,
Flipper.
But yeah, Flipper. But yeah, and I was glad that you brought up that he was playing overseas, because when they said he announced his retirement, I swore he had already retired because he hadn't.
Yeah, me too. I thought he did, but I guess he had just gone home. So pretty cool though. Again, a really good career. So I would think he will one day be in the Hall of Fame solely for the fact that he's part of the Triple Gold Club. I think that's an elusive group to be a part of. So again, and he's the only Finnish player to be part of it. So between that and the 1,000 games in the show, I think he's all but a lock for the Hall.
Yeah, like I said, by no means am I saying he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but definitely
he'll get in there.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, two more things before we get to playoff stuff. So the first one is the World Championships we're gearing up. And I just had to laugh because Linus Ullmark wanted to go to play for Sweden in the World Championships, and they told him no. So I was like, wow, I don't know what he did there. Hurt someone's feelings over there. But yeah, Ullmark was rejected by Team Sweden for the World Championships. I thought that was very strange.
I can understand it if you want my take here.
Let's hear it, because what are the options?
Well, my thing is, he's not proven himself to be trustworthy in playoff games. And this is a fucking tournament, an international tournament. So they want somebody who's consistent, and he has not been consistent. Granted, Ottawa had a good push against Toronto. I loved that series, but he's proven himself that he's not your number one guy. Generally speaking, on average. So I think that's why they turned him away. I don't see why else they would turn him away.
Now, I just want to, this is kind of where I have an issue with it. The goalies that Sweden is bringing for the tournament are Samuel Ersson of the Flyers, Arvid Soderblom from the Blackhawks, and Jacob Markstrom from the Devils. Now, Markstrom obviously is a fantastic goalie, but Samuel Ersson is terrible. Arvid Soderblom is even worse. They're bringing two dog shit goalies to go, but to line up behind Jacob Markstrom. And again, if Markstrom stays healthy in the tournament, I would assume he'll play every game. But to not even bring Ullmark unless you're really like there's zero chance you're gonna play, it just doesn't make any sense for me. Ersson and Soderblom are so bad. Why would you want? First of all, Ullmark aside, why would you want to bring those guys? But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny that it was made very public that they're like, yeah, we don't want him here. I thought that was very strange, but it is what it is.
Yeah, whatever.
I just thought it was funny. Quick side note too, Marc-Andre Fleury is going to go play for Canada at the World Championship. So not technically retired yet, as he is going to go play one more time. He's going to go get to play with Sid, which, he had a fun, again, a great career and a fun ride to the finish. And once we get into the off season, we'll do a proper honoring of Marc-Andre Fleury. But I just think it's great that after this kind of retirement tour he had this year, he gets to go cap it off by playing with Sid at the World Championships. He didn't go back and play with the Penguins. He's to finish his career. He's going to stay in Minnesota. His family likes it there, so he's not going to be going back to Pittsburgh in any kind of capacity like that. But at least he gets to put the cherry on top of his career by playing with his buddy Sid one more time. So I like that. I like it too.
Yeah, we'll dive deep into Fleury because later on because we could do a whole episode on.
Yeah,
him.
We need more time to do it, and I can't use the segment of the Wild being eliminated to talk about Fleury because I need more time than that.
Yeah, I feel you, but I'm excited to see him play in international play, especially one more time with Sid. That'll be great, and I'm sure I would bet good money there will be some prank videos that come out of that. So,
I'm sure. I was going to say, I'm sure as soon as they called him to bring him on, I'm sure he was already thinking of ways to hide Sid's gear, or throw it in the ocean or something. So,
yeah, I'm excited. So that'll be fun.
Before we get to the playoff talk, then one more thing, I just want to do a quick Blue Jackets corner. Zach Werenski officially nominated for the Norris Trophy for best defenseman in the league. Him, along with Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, were the nominees. I don't think Quinn Hughes gets this. He just did not play enough games, and I know he's a sick defenseman, and in a full season, he's obviously right up there as well. I assume Cale Makar is going to be the winner of this, but I really think it should be Zach Werenski, given everything the team has dealt with this year, how effective he was. I think he led the team in scoring. So I think it'll go to Makar, and that's not to take away from him because he's the best defender in the league by a country mile. But I really think this year, again, given everything we knew going into the season, it's really hard for me. Even if I were unbiased, it'd be really hard to go against Werenski. It just feels like the right pick, but I won't be upset when it's Cale Makar. If it's Quinn Hughes, like I said with the Masterton, throw the award away because Quinn Hughes, even though yes, just as good as these two or in the same realm as these two, he missed 20 plus games this year, 20 or 30 games he missed. So yeah, I don't want to, again, a great defenseman, and I'm not taking anything away, and he's awesome, and I'm glad he's American so he can play for us. I mean, so is Z, but for Christ's sake, man, there's no way he wins this award this year.
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, we all know it's going to Cale Makar. And I personally, obviously biased. I want Z to get it. Everybody loves Z. And like you said, what we knew going into this season, how he carried his team this year, obviously he deserves it. But on the other end of the spectrum, you've got Cale Makar, who is, like you said, the best defender in the league, light years ahead of everybody else. So it's hard to be mad at that. I do agree that these are good finalists for it. But again, it definitely should not be Quinn Hughes. So either way, regardless of the outcome, whether it's Z or Cale Makar, I'm happy with the result no matter what.
Yep. And then one more thing on the Blue Jackets, Adam Fantilli and Kent Johnson are also going to be playing for Canada at the World Championship. So Dean's going to be coaching. He'll have two of his guys on his roster there. So that'll be cool for them. Again, any more experience these kids can get under their belt helps. I think playing on an international stage, even though it's not the Olympics, will help Mo and help KJ. Getting to be around Sid, guys like Sid and McKinnon and Fleury, I think will go a long way. These guys will, again, it's not the Olympics, but these guys will learn a thing or two about how to be a pro, how to win, playing with guys like Sid and Nate and Flower, who have won plenty of times and have been in deep playoff runs plenty of times. And I guess McKinnon hasn't won Olympic gold yet, but he might only be a year away from doing that. So, but Sid and Flower have obviously won a shit ton of stuff. So, these guys will get good experience being around guys who are pros like this. Canada's roster for being the World Championships, God, is their roster going to be unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, they're going to walk away with it. So
yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it's going to be particularly close. All of the best American players really are still in the playoffs, other than like the Hughes brothers, who 2 out of 3 are banged up, and yeah, it's goofy. But the Kachucks, I didn't see anything about Brady going to the World Championships. Obviously, Matthews still playing. Austin Matthews is still playing. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be some good American players there, but the difference in rosters is going to be hilarious. So,
oh well, I'll be here watching the playoffs. So,
all right. Speaking of the playoffs, it's high time we get to them. So let's talk about the 8 series from round 1, and then we'll do a quick preview on round 2 as well, even though it's technically already underway. So let's start in the Eastern Conference. So we're just going to go in the order that I have these in my notes. So we'll start with the Toronto and Ottawa series. Leafs win that series 4-2. My takeaway from Ottawa's side of things is that they really showed resilience in this series after going down 3-0. You can clearly see there's a path forward for them with the young stars they have. We just talked about Allmark a little bit ago with the shaky goaltending, and maybe he's really got to take a step forward and really step his game up in the postseason, because we know he can be a good goalie. They're going to probably need some help down the middle. I don't know if Claude Giroux re-signs there or not or whatever. It seems like he would be content to stay in Ottawa. But even if he does stay, this team needs some help down the middle. I think that's part of what kind of got them chewed up in this series. They had Brady, obviously, to match up against Austin Matthews, and Giroux to match up against like the Tavares line. But down the middle, I think the Sens just need guys who can win face-offs and be defensively stout and play well in their own end, because you could just see it at times, especially early in the series. They just got their ass kicked around in their own end, and ultimately that's how they fell behind so early in the series. And I know there was a lot of overtimes and stuff, but it just looked like, especially early in the series, they just really never had a chance.
Yeah, and that I did think that Toronto was going to run them over. I thought that was going to be it. Honestly, I thought the series was going to be a sweep. But Brady Tkachuk really showed what a competitor he is in that series, though, just like he did in the Four Nations face-off. So it's not surprising to everybody, but that man deserves the C he wears on his chest. I think he's the right man at the helm as far as leadership goes. But like you said, they need some serious help down the middle. You can't just rely on him and Giroux to carry a team. And I mean, a big part of that is winning faceoffs. I know there's plenty of people out there that like to argue just because you can't win a faceoff doesn't mean you win a game. Correct. Or you won't win a game. Correct. But regardless, it helps.
Puck possession is so important.
Yeah, exactly.
It just is. I mean, yes, you can win if you don't have the best faceoff guys, but boy, is it a lot easier to do it when you do win faceoffs and you have the puck and you're not chasing the play, especially when you're in the offensive zone losing draws like that. You don't want to be chasing play all the time. You want to get some good looks. You want to be able to do some drawn up plays. Like the Sens team is missing a couple strong pieces. I think they could still bolster the defense a little bit, even though there's a lot of promise there too. But I think there's definitely a much clearer path forward now for them than there was to start the year.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. But I knew going into the series that Toronto was going to be too good for Ottawa. So
yeah. And for the Leafs, they finally got the big boys going too. Like I know games 4 and 5 weren't really favorable for them, but games 1 through 3 and game 6, they had the big boys going. Like everybody talks about every spring with these guys. It's the same thing. Can the core 4 get going? Can the big boys start scoring? And they all did. I know Matthews didn't have, I think he had 1 goal or no goals, but he had a bunch of assists. But Marner and Nylander looked great. Nylander's having a really good run so far of it. The defense was pretty solid. I think the experience of Chris Tanev and Jake McCabe has really helped this group, and Stolar's playing out of his mind for them right now. So for the Leafs, it was a good series, and we'll get more into them as we set up their series versus the Panthers in a little bit. But yeah, they showed up for this series, and this again seemed like one that was somewhat of a foregone conclusion that they would win the series. But good, ultimately you still have to win the games, even if you're favored by a country mile. You still have to play the games. You still have to be effective. You still have to win, and they answered the call finally. So good on them. Now we're going to talk about the Battle of Florida. So Battle of Ontario was great. Battle of Florida was a lot of fun too, particularly if you're cheering for the Panthers. But the Cats pulled this one out 4-1. Starting to look like the Bolts have a boogeyman, and it might be the Florida Panthers. So 3 straight first-round exits for the Bolts, 1 to the Leafs, and now 2 in a row to the Panthers. I don't know, and I don't know if there's what truth there is to this with the John Cooper potentially leaving and going to Utah. I don't know how much traction that has, but I think it was Sarah Volley that was mentioning the potential that he might go to Utah and be a coach or a GM over there. So that would be fascinating.
That would be fascinating, and I'd be worried about facing Utah then. So John Cooper's a hell of a coach. I don't care what anybody says. I know what's happened in Tampa the last 3, but he's one of the best coaches to ever coach in the NHL. So
I'm be the first one to poo-poo their 2 Stanley Cups they have under him because I thought the bubble playoffs were a fucking joke, and I thought the COVID season, the 21 season, I thought with the divisional line, that whole thing was a cartoon. But you know what? The players and coaches didn't have a say in that. Really, that's what was put in front of them. That you have to play the hand you're dealt, and they weren't going to go out there and not try and win. So even though I'll be the first one to call their cups fake or stupid or illegitimate, whatever, the reality is they still won those games. They're still on the Stanley Cup. You know, they went into the playoffs. They won the series they had to. So that's what it comes down to. Coop's an excellent coach, and I know whether he stays in Tampa or he moves on, he'll be effective wherever he is. But for the Bolts, it looks like there's going to need to be a little bit of retooling there. The team is still unbelievably stacked. Vasilevsky's still great. I know his playoff numbers were not kind to him this season or last, but the reality is that this is still a very good group, and I just think they need to put a little bit of it in the blender and mix things up and try and bring in some different names to support the great cast they already have. You know, I think you start pulling and plugging in different depth pieces to see what gels and what doesn't, because the star power is there for them. You think of obviously the big names like Point, Kucherov, Gensel. I'm not going to say Brandon Hagel because I don't like him. But, you know, Sorelli, there's good players there, and the defensive core obviously is great with Hedman leading the charge with them. So there's pieces there, and I just think maybe a fresh set of eyes on it again, as far as if they made a coaching change, wouldn't be horrible. But again, with Coop as a coach, you really wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to give that up if I were a GM.
That's how I feel too. And you know, another thing is, we know how good Tampa Bay has the potential to be. We know how stacked their team is. We know how good of a goalie Vasi is. But you have to remember, I wouldn't take into account their first round exit the last 2 seasons against Florida, because last year's Panthers obviously went on to win the Cup. They're a great team. And this year, they're a really, really good team. It just is what it is. But because I know how good the Bolts have been last year and this year, I had that series going 7 games, and both times the Panthers walked away in 5, and I couldn't believe it. But that's just how good they were. So it's not really how poorly Tampa performed in the playoffs, although I will argue going 0 for 5, 0 for 6 on a power play is horrendous. I will still say the Panthers teams they were playing were phenomenal teams. So it's not like they were getting kicked out in the first round by a team like Ottawa. So.
Well, and even their loss to the Leafs in the first round a couple seasons ago now, that was on the tail end of 3 straight runs to the final. And again, I know the 2 COVID bubbles, so they weren't full seasons, and the COVID Cup was after 3 months off, whatever. But then they come back, play a full season in 21-22, and they go all the way to the final and play 6 games. So this is a team that's played a ton of hockey. These guys are probably just burnt out, but again, clearly an ineffective formula against the Panthers. Whatever it is, the Panthers haven't figured out. Paul Maurice is winning this coaching battle. I think Coop is still the better coach, but in this specific scenario, head-to-head, Paul Maurice has them figured out. The Panthers have them figured out. So there's some changes there that are needed, but I'm not nearly smart enough to be the first guy to say, this guy should stay, this guy should go. I just am fascinated how a team this good is getting bounced in the first round 3 years in a row. It's just weird.
It is weird, but I mean, we've seen weirder things too. So I don't think coaching is the issue, though. And no matter where Cooper goes, he's going to have success because he's just that good of a coach. And since we're on the topic of these 2 teams, and speaking of coaching, you know, Paul Maurice has really made a name for himself as a head coach with the Panthers the years he's been with them. You know, I never had the highest praises for him before that, but he's really come into this Panthers organization and not only made them do a complete 180, but he's really... We can pump his tires when we get to the Panthers and Leafs series, because I do want to move on and get these teams that are eliminated knocked out, because we'll really dive into the teams that are still alive, but I want to wait till we preview those series. Okay.
Washington, Montreal. This one, look, Habs fans will be the first ones to tell you that they're the best team in the league when they aren't. But the reality was this group, low expectations coming into the season. St. Louis gets these guys playing great. It gets them into the postseason. They end the season as one of the hottest teams in the league, but clearly just too outmatched versus Washington. They're still very early in their not rebuild, but their build for their team now, and it just showed the valley of a difference between them and the Capitals. The Caps clearly a battle tested team to some extent, at least in comparison to Montreal, and the quick series was highlighted that.
Yeah, and I mean, Montreal is not an easy building to play. It's one of the loudest in the league, and their delusional fans are extremely devoted to their team. But that being said, the Caps still walked all over them, which I thought they were going to sweep them. Not the case, but not mad with the outcome either. So Montreal, I think this is a step into the future for them as far as what we can expect to see moving forward. I think they're only going to get better from here.
Yeah,
so
they're going to continue to get very good.
Yeah, I mean they have a good looking team anyway. It's not like it was some big surprise that granted they did squeak in and it was an all out battle between them and Columbus right at the end to get in, but I do think that in the long run they were a team that deserved to be there. So and I think for years to come, at least the next several, we're going to be seeing them in the playoffs every year.
Yeah, well, and Habs fan, I mean, obviously they still have Reinbacher on the way to help bolster the roster. The big thing for them is goaltending. I don't think Samuel Montembeault is a good goalie. I just don't. Dobish has showed a lot of signs that he has the potential to be a great goalie. But there were other times where he looked very pedestrian, but again, he's young. So it's hard to gauge that because goalies are just so weird with their development. But I think going forward, Dobish has got to be the guy they at least try to lean on. I truly do not think Sam Montembeault is a good goalie. I don't. I have not seen sustained enough evidence to believe it. And I know he's had a lot of good games, but he just lacks that aura that good goalies like Ottinger, like Vasilevsky, like Bobrovsky, like Hellebuck during the regular season. Like he doesn't have that kind of that charm to him, he just doesn't. So I don't see it there. And I'm not saying Dobish does, but again, he showed a lot more flashes of brilliance in a much smaller sample size. So we'll see what happens with them going forward. But the future is so bright for the Habs. I mean, there's just so much young talent there. And again, they have more guys on the way. Obviously getting Demidov there was huge for them. But getting Reinbacher there will be a big one for them too. We'll see what they do in the draft this year as well to add some pieces, and what they do in the I was going to say the postseason, what they do in the offseason. But this is not the end of the road for them. This was just a small glimpse into the future of the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get to a point where they'll be one of the more feared teams in the league again, like they were in the early to mid 2000s or 2010s. So
still a damn shame they never won a Cup of Carey Price. It's really too bad.
Yeah, that does suck, but I'm not mad about it because I can't stand the Habs. So,
speaking of people that should not be mad, New Jersey Devils, Carolina Hurricanes. We knew from the beginning the injuries were just going to be too much for the Devils to overcome. They put up a hell of a fight given the hand they were dealt, but losing Jack Hughes and then losing Luke Hughes and. It just wasn't their year this year. It's still a really sick team. If they stay healthy next year, they'll probably be again one of the best teams in the league. Markstrom is still continuing to perform at a really high level. So I think next season for the Devils, I would be okay if they ran it back with the exact same roster and we're just like, look, let's see if we can stay healthy because they're a good team. I don't know how I feel about Keefe there as the coach after one season, but again, I want to give the guy a fair shake. Again, they went kicking and screaming against the Hurricanes. It was never going to be an easy series, even if they were fully healthy, but the injuries were just too much. So they put up a hell of a fight, but I'd love to see what this exact team can do, but fully healthy next year.
I think about the biggest problem, like you said, is the team was plagued by injury. So I think for Sheldon Keefe, you have to work with what you have. Now, on the other end of that, it's no secret that he's kind of soft as far as being a coach goes. So I don't want to rush to conclusions after one season. Give the guy a full season with a healthy team and see what he does there. And that'll be kind of easier to gauge it. But I don't know. Like you said, they put up a hell of a fight. So who knows? But Carolina's actually playing Washington right now. We got the game on in the background. So, and that's going to be a hell of a series, but we'll get into that shortly.
All right, so that's the East. Now we'll go over to the West. Let's talk about. It's funny. This is the first time I listen to the West. The Jets and the Blues.
Dude,
holy shit! The ultimate homer series. The home team winning every single game in that series. Just biblical levels of hockey. I mean, just an unbelievable series. All the storylines between the crap goaltending from Connor Hellebuck and the home team's winning every game. But I'll tell you that Game 7 was just unreal.
Yeah.
The third longest Game 7 of all time. It's hard to pinpoint any one thing from that Game 7. I mean, the Blues jumping out to the early lead, we both looked at each other like this. You just stick a fork in the Jets, they're done. But a couple of beautiful goals from Cole Perfetti. The redirect on the first goal, he's practically standing on the goal line to the side of the net, and he chips it up over Binnington's shoulder. The tying goal was unbelievable. Just the way, Ehlers makes the cross seam pass over to Kyle Connor, and Connor essentially passes it over, but really whiffs on what should have been a one-timer, but it lands right on Perfetti's stick, and he's able to just chip it in as it's coming to him to tie that game up. And the building explodes. The whiteout crowd was unbelievable. They were so loud. The crowd in the streets was dancing, going crazy. It was unbelievable. And the play by Neil Pionk in overtime, just get the puck to the net with traffic, and Adam Lowry either bounces off of him in some capacity, but again, if you throw the puck at the net, eventually it'll go in. And the Jets were just, once they got the game tied up, it just felt like they were not going to look back, and they didn't. They ran the Blues over in overtime and double overtime, and come out with the series win. Just an unreal series.
Yeah, and I mean, they had a lot of good looks in the first overtime too. I was very eventful. So I had to force myself to stay awake because there was no way I was going to miss the conclusion of that game. But, I remember a time when I said, I think this was last season on this show, I said, nothing will ever top Matthew Tkachuk's goal in Game 4 of the Western Conference Final against Carolina, where he scored Eastern Conference Final to send the Panthers to the Stanley Cup. This is right there with it. That game tying goal at 1.6 seconds, which I'll argue was that puck went in well before 1.6 seconds.
Yeah, the official time of the goal was 19:57. The clock just didn't stop when the puck went in.
That doesn't take away from the.
No, it was still the latest tying goal in a Game 7 in NHL history.
Absolutely, and it was just so electric. I mean, I'm not even a Jets fan at all, and I jumped up from my seat. I was in your living room watching it with you, and I jumped up from my seat. That was
both teams that won the Game 7s I can't stand, but boy, the pops in those buildings, that was like music to your ears to hear the crowds just jump up and just scream at the top of their lungs like that. And we'll get to the Dallas one in a minute, but
those are goals that we live for as hockey fans.
Oh yeah,
I mean, those electric
makes
moments.
The playoffs. Yeah, it's what makes the playoffs so fun.
Absolutely.
There's nothing like it.
And when there's people ask, well, why would I watch playoff hockey, or why should I watch hockey? For moments like that. That is exactly what we live for as hockey fans.
Now, looking at this from the Blues angle, it's a tough way to go. You fight like hell all season long to get into the playoffs, and you draw a tough opponent in the first round. You blow their goalie out of the water. I mean, you chase him all 3 games that you're in your own building, and it just looks like the favorable matchup for them in a lot of ways because of how bad Hellebuck was. But sometimes, like, we talk about the old unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Well, eventually the immovable object became Jordan Binnington, and the unstoppable force became the Jets, because, again, the Game 7 in the third, they just turned the heat up in the last few minutes, and man, they never looked back. So for the Blues, it's a frustrating way for your season to end, and it's one that'll probably hang with them all off season. But a team that's this well coached, and again, even the early days under Monty, they had a good start, and then it kind of tailed off, and then they turned it back on late in the season. But I think this group has found its chemistry, and I really don't see a scenario next season where the Blues aren't right back in this. Just a little more prepared for battle this time. I think the Blues will be one of the better teams in the league next year. And so even though it's a heartbreaking way for the season to go out, look, if Binnington can continue to perform at the level he is and keep his cool, the Blues will be dangerous again next year. So it's tough, but I don't think they need to hang their heads too hard on this one.
No, nobody wants to lose, especially in a Game 7 of that magnitude. But, I have a friend who's a Blues fan, and you and I were talking to him last night, and I was saying the same thing pretty much. Monty's a phenomenal coach. This is a good group they have with the right guy at the helm. I think they have a very bright future. And as you just mentioned, they'll be right back in this next year. possibly even better than they were this year. And I can tell you where they ended up this year is a hell of a lot better than they were before Monty joined. So I think they have a very bright future. And if you're a Blues fan, there's no reason to let this get you down. You just simply move on from it and start over next season and plug away. I think the Blues are going to be a very good team.
I think they're going to be the beneficiary of hopefully being the first team to give Jim Montgomery some time to really develop with this team. Because you look at his time in Dallas, it was cut short because he had personal matters. He had to get his own life and his own health on track, and that's more important than any game. But he doesn't spend a ton of time in Dallas to grow with that group. He goes to the Bruins, has 2 incredible seasons, and then
The Bruins
part of the way through the 3rd season, the Bruins decide that, the Jacobs family doesn't want to fire their golden goose, Don Sweeney. He's more like a golden
jackass,
dead raccoon or something. I don't know, but they won't fire their golden boy, so they make Montgomery the scapegoat. So look, and I know with the Bruins, there were some colossal playoff meltdowns, and I don't want to brand Montgomery as a guy that can't get it done in the playoffs, because again, similar to how players need time to build chemistry and learn lessons in the playoffs, coaches do too. They need to learn their groups. They need to see what works, what doesn't. You can't just plug a guy in and expect to go win instantly. It doesn't always work like that. So I think the patience for the Blues will be a big thing. Again, they add Snuggerud late in the season. I really think this kid's going to be an incredible hockey player in the NHL. His shot's good. His hockey sense is really good. But the Blues already have a pretty decent team anyways. And if they can bolster that roster and continue to grow and learn under Montgomery, I think the Blues are going to reap the rewards of keeping one of the more I guess, underrated coaches, given that team's it just seems like he can't last more than a couple seasons with the team. But I really think some time in St. Louis is going to turn him and this club into an absolute force.
Yeah, sky's the limit for this team. Like I'm saying, again, don't let this get you down. I know it's a tough way to go out, but the team has such a bright future. And I'm not a Blues fan, but if you're a hockey fan in general, it's going to be fun to watch.
All right. So speaking of fun to watch, we had another Game 7. Dallas, Colorado. Unbelievable series again. We're talking just some all-time insane hockey. The series that Mikko Rantanen put together the last few games of the series. Back-to-back games with 4-point periods. Just an unbelievable effort. Hat trick in Game 7, 4 points in the 3rd period. Just nuts. It was an unbelievable game. The fans were outstanding. It was just a ton of fun to watch. But for the Avalanche, the question is, and Nathan McKinnon said, it's like, what do we do now? Where do we go from here? Because the Stars are missing their best defender, one of their best forwards, and the Avs, who on paper are probably the best team in the league, still could not get it done. So the question for the Avs is, where do you go from here? Because you build what should be the best team in the league, and you still can't get it done. So is that a matter of, is it a coaching issue, which I don't think it is? I mean, are they just that unlucky that they didn't get the bounces they needed? I don't want to talk about the bad officiating, because all 8 series in the first round had really terrible officiating. I think that was the biggest takeaway I had from this first round as a whole. But for the Avs, it's like, what the fuck do we do now?
Yeah, I'm kind of a believer right now that they're just that unlucky, because nothing else really makes sense to me at this point. I don't think it's a coaching issue. I really don't. I mean, that in reality, they should be one of the most dangerous teams in the NHL. It just doesn't make sense. Like McKinnon said, we still couldn't get it done, and they were missing some of their biggest guys. Where do you go? I can't place a finger on anything. They solved their goaltending issues. I mean, they didn't bring in any, super elite household name goaltenders, but they fixed their goaltending issues nonetheless during the season, and it paid off well for them. But I also think part of it is just Dallas is just that good. I truly think, and I don't want to give credit to Dallas, but I have to. I think they're just that good of a team.
No, I think you're right. To me, it's starting to look like Dallas is going to win the West. I mean, I had Colorado as my Stanley Cup pick, but boy, is it really hard to see a scenario where Dallas doesn't come out of the West this year. If they keep talking about Heiskanen and Robertson are getting closer to returning, if they get those guys back and they are truly completely healthy, especially with Rantanen playing the way he did now, I mean, they look like an absolute fucking brick shit house. They are just nothing is gonna be able to break them.
Well, I would argue even if they only get one of those guys back, I'd say that that's still everybody
if
else
they're
is
going to
doing.
go deep, they need Heiskanen. That's the. I mean,
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
Robertson
saying.
will definitely help too, but they need Heiskanen so bad. If they can get one back, that's the guy they're hoping for.
Absolutely. But again, this series fucked up my whole bracket because Colorado on my three main brackets of the 48,000 I made, Colorado was my pick to win the cup. I thought this was for sure going to be the year. And, I got to say Mikko Rantanen too. He is one of my favorite players in the NHL right now. He's so fun to watch. He's a good team guy. Everybody just loves him. Except Colorado fans right now, probably.
Colorado will never live down trading him. I was one of the.
No.
Now I will say they did it the right way. They trade him to the other conference, so he leaves you alone. But holy shit! Even if you don't think you can re-sign him, for a guy who is probably the best playoff performer of this young generation of players, to just keep him. I mean, it was the same thing when Carolina was realizing they couldn't sign him either. In my head, I'm like, just keep the fucking guy and see if you can go on a run. Now, for what it's worth, the chemistry just wasn't there. But
right,
it was my thought. It was the same for the Avalanche. If you can't sign him, keep him and go for one last run at it. And then if he goes, he goes. But you can say you threw everything you could at this. I didn't think Natchez was terrible in the series for the Avs, but Rantanen was just so much better. And you can tell they're loving him in Dallas. Dallas has really needed that one extra big scorer, and we talked about it before with the Stars. With Pavelski being gone, you got to find a guy that can play well in the playoffs, and they got him. They absolutely got him. And you know what? Let's give Jake Ottinger some credit too. He's had some shaky moments in the past in the playoffs where, and again, a young goalie, and you wonder, as good as he is, can he put you over? I'll tell you what, man. I know they went down 2-0. But in the third period, he locked the fuck in. He looked calm, collected. He wasn't being overly flashy, trying to look overconfident. He was just making saves and just doing his job. And he looked cool as a cucumber. And again, that's part of the reason I think Dallas now should be the favorite to win this whole thing. He just looks like he's taking it to another level. And again, if they're getting Heiskanen and Robertson back, I mean, there's no way in hell anybody can beat a roster this good.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that. But
and I know I pick on their defense, but they're a wagon right now.
Yeah, they really are. One thing I have to say from this series, the Game 7, my favorite thing that happened was Rantanen on his way to the empty net to score his hat trick, and before the puck was ever even in the net, the hats were already starting to fly onto the ice.
Yeah, I noticed that too in the moment. But between the shock of holy crap, the Avs really lost this. But you look up and you see a couple of hats coming down. I'm like, oh, these people could not wait to fire those things on the ice.
But you don't do that because if you can recall, there's been several instances where guys from 2 feet away from the net miss it on an empty net.
My favorite one I can't remember who was Buddy in Nashville that was an inch in front of the net and shot it into the fucking atmosphere.
Yeah. And everybody thought, even the goal horn guy fucking thought he made it. But then what was that guy's name? Patrick Stefan? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Oh, the one where against Edmonton, and that was the Stars.
Ironically, he was on the Stars. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's
unbelievable.
I still don't know how he did it. He mishandles the puck somehow. I still, after watching the video millions of times, still don't know what happened. But you always wait
on him and jumped away from his blade, and the rest was history. And Ales Hemsky dunked it in the empty net. What's funny, or not the empty net, but dunked it in the net at the other end. What's funny is the Stars still won that game. That's the one thing people always forget, is that the Stars, even with that big blunder at the end, the Stars won that game. But
that is why you wait until the puck's in the back of the net.
Yeah. Anyway, it was cool. It was the vibes were good. The Dallas crowd is intimidating and as exciting as it gets. Really, I would say I would put them up against most American markets as far as volume. I mean, the Jets whiteout and the Habs, who have the advantage of having the biggest arena in the league. But those two barns are about as loud as it gets too. Chicago, when they're good too, that's a real loud one. Nashville's crowd is really good. But Dallas, they just found a way to find that next level and get as loud as they could. And the vibes there were immaculate for Stars fans. So they're feeling themselves, and they should be right now. You knock off what a lot of people had as the Cup favorite, and all of a sudden now you're cruising. You go to battle with a divisional rival who has looked shaky at times. And well, again, we'll get to them in a little bit, but a tough way for the AF season to end for sure. I'll be very interested to see how they address things in the off season because, again, on paper, they're still probably the best team in the league. You go pound for pound, player for player, they're still probably the best team in the league. I think the big thing that they would want to address maybe is a proper 2C. I think they didn't get what they wanted out of Brock Nelson. I thought Charlie Coyle, for the most part, was effective in his role, but I think a good 2C, like maybe adding Sidney Crosby.
We're not going down this road.
We're not going to go down that route, but I'm just saying, like, if you can find another good center, there's still so much talent there. The defense core is unbelievable. Mackenzie Blackwood had an outstanding year with them. It was really nice to see him have a good, I guess you could say, a resurgence, so to speak, under a team as good as the Avalanche are. So that was a great match for them. But again, obviously, the division's getting tough around them. St. Louis is still good. The Jets are good. The Stars are good. The Wild, when they're healthy, are good. Nashville should be good. Utah's getting better. Like, there's not a lot of room for mistakes. So the Avalanche are going to have to do something to really push themselves over as they look towards next season.
We'll see what it is because I don't know what.
Yeah,
I don't know where you.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't either. But I don't get paid the big bucks to figure that out. So let's move on. We have the Vegas Golden Knights and Minnesota Wild. Prior to the Game 7s that we saw, I had actually written in my notes that this was the best first round series, and it's hard to not be biased in this case because my wife likes Vegas and I like the Wild, but man, was this probably the least nasty series. There wasn't a lot of dumb bullshit. The officiating was horrendous on both ends in the series, but there wasn't a lot of nastiness. That was just every game was high level, elite competitive hockey. Both home crowds were really good. I wasn't crazy about the Vegas crowd in Game 1. I thought they could have been better, but they were good the rest of the way. The Minnesota crowd obviously was very good. It was just really good hockey. The Wild Stars looked outstanding throughout the series. Vegas's guys obviously came to life later in the series, but just some good competitive hockey. I thought the Wild, the offside in Game 5 that cost them the game, that one stings as a Wild fan. That was a tough pill to swallow. I think if I never see Gustav Nyquist or John Merrill ever again, it'll be too soon. Nyquist obviously with the offside in Game 5, and John Merrill blowing the coverage on the overtime winner in what was that? Was that it was also Game 5. God, both of those things happened in the same game. That's a nightmare. But yeah, it just there were some chances in this series that I thought the Wild had to kind of throw the death blow, and it didn't happen. And again, that offside absolutely sunk them. I kind of thought they were done after that. But you know what? They showed promise going forward. Obviously, we know when healthy, this can be a good team. They have good star power. They have a very good defense core. Philip Gustafsson is one of the best goalies in the league, even though he's not talked about as much as some of the big names like Vasilevsky and Hellebuck and Ottinger. There's pieces here for the Wild, and they're going to be out of cap hell this summer. And so as a fan of the team, obviously I'm excited, but as a hockey fan, you look and this isn't the sexiest free agent class. There's not a lot of big names out there. You think of Tavares or Marner if they go to market, but the Wild still need to offer Kirill Kaprizov a contract extension. He still has one more year on his current deal, but he's due for a pay raise that'll almost double his current contract. They have to decide what they're going to do with Marco Rossi. Like there's decisions that they have to make, but I can guarantee you bringing back John Merrill and Gustav Nyquist won't be one of those decisions. But correct. Ryan Hartman, I must say that he made a lot of Wild fans eat shit. And now we rightfully gave him shit for his stupid behavior that earned him a 10-game suspension, but he came back from that suspension, played some of the best hockey of his career. He looked outstanding in the playoffs. He was part of the reason that they were in this as long as they were. This is a group that has a chance to do some serious damage this summer. But again, with a somewhat lackluster free agent class, it's probably going to have to be done through trades. And again, the most important thing is that they fire as much money at Kirill Kaprizov as they can, because this team goes as he goes. Even as good as Matt Boldy is, this team needs both of those guys to be great, and they need to find a number one center. Eric Sinek is outstanding, and he's a great shutdown center, and he's great on the power play, but they need an elite number one center, and they have Daniil Yurov coming over from Russia next season, but that's all magic beans until he gets here and plays. You don't know what you're getting. They need to go out and find a bona fide number one center. This team is very good on paper, but does not have the horses to make a deep playoff run until they add that guy that you can throw out there in every situation to pair with Eriksson, because they throw him out there for everything now, but they need that top level household name kind of guy.
You took the words right out of my mouth, because I was going to say, I thought that they surprised everyone with how well they actually did play against Vegas. I think just about everybody thought that was going to be a very quick series,
myself included. I mean, even knowing they were healthy, I thought, man, it's Vegas, man, they're going to be done in 5 games. I'm not even going to talk about how they could have won if this or that, but yeah, keep going.
But again, I was surprised with how well they played Vegas, and they looked like a team that did belong in the playoffs. And while it looks like they have a pretty bright future, like you said, there's still that missing piece they need if they want to have any hope of making a deep run in these playoffs, because these teams are only getting better with every season that passes. These players become more elite, highly skilled, and faster. They need that guy, like you said, that they can throw into every situation. And until that happens, you're not going to see this team make a deep run, which, I mean, obviously priority number one, lock down Kaprizov, like you said. I have really enjoyed watching him play this year. He's so fun to watch play. He makes everything he does look easy. And it's something about those Russian hockey players, man. It's just, I don't know. That's why I want to see Russia in international play, because they're just some of the best hockey players in the world. And he is the poster child for that in my book.
Kirill Kaprizov has an Olympic gold medal.
Does he really?
He won with Russia in 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
No shit.
Yeah, because the NHL wasn't at the Olympics. And it wasn't even Russia. It was the Olympic athletes of Russia or whatever. Olympic athletes from Russia. But yeah, Kaprizov was part of that team. But look, he's obviously one of the best players in the league, and they need to get him a supporting cast. So as a Wild fan, obviously the season ending sucks, and the romantic, the hockey romantic in me wanted them to get one more cup from Marc-Andre Fleury to have him right off into the sunset. But I think the only injustice for Flower at the end was that ESPN cut to the Oilers and Kings national anthems before Flower could go through the handshake line and say goodbye to the crowd. That was the only crime there. But
yeah,
the Wild, it sucks that the season's over, but there's so much hope there. But and I trust Bill Guerin, even though there's a lot of delusional Wild fans who think he's doing a bad job. That's just not true, and you can argue with a fucking wall for all I care. But they need to make some decisions. They have some guys getting older. Johansson's expiring, Nyquist is expiring, John Merrill's expiring, Zuccarello's starting to climb up there in age. Spurgeon's not getting any younger, even though he's not an old guy yet. They have some important decisions to make, but there's something there for this group, and it's fun to joke around and the Minnesota Mild or the Minnesota Mild, and whatever. It's funny. They haven't won a playoff series in 10 years, and it's all well and good. The jokes are hilarious and stuff, but the reality is they're for the first time in probably, God, at least 5 or 6 years, there's legitimate hope for this team. I feel like there's finally a path forward. They have good players already. They just need to figure out how to bolster the lineup around them to build a team that can compete in the playoffs.
I agree with you, man. But we'll see what happens next season. Like I said, I think this isn't a one and done. I think they'll be back next year.
All right, last one here. LA and Edmonton. Look, first of all, congrats to the Oilers. Everybody had them dead to rights with Ekholm being out of the lineup, Stuart Skinner being awful. I mean, but Calvin Pickard comes in after Skinner starts the series in LA, and it's just terrible. The Oilers rattle off 4 straight wins to move on, and who knows? Ekholm doesn't sound like he'll be back for this round, but if they can survive against Vegas, you never know. Look, we mentioned this with the Rob Blake firing. LA's got to burn this to the ground, burn it to ashes, and then burn the ashes, because there is some bad juju or bad voodoo somewhere with this team, and they gotta make a change, a big change, because this is not it.
Yeah, look, man, I'm part of the majority here where we were like, yeah, LA is gonna win this series. I don't even know what to say at this point. I props to Calvin Pickard, obviously, but I don't know what went wrong. I mean, something's got to give at some point. And I know every team has their boogeyman, but again, something's got to give at some point. It's not, it's not like they've been going 7 games every year against Edmonton, like the Boston Toronto series. Like, that's different because it's always a bloodbath. This is just Edmonton kicking LA's ass. And I don't know what it is.
Yep. It's funny. I listened to our season previews the last couple of days to kind of give myself an idea of where we thought things were going to be at the start of the season. And I had Vancouver and Edmonton gunning for the top 2 spots in the Pacific. I don't think any of us predicted the crash out that the Canucks had. I don't think anybody could have seen that coming, but I didn't think LA was going to be a team that was competing for one of the top 2 spots in the division. I thought it was a lock to be Vancouver, Edmonton, and Vegas, but LA, again, they get a Vezina quality season from Darcy Kemper, a great season from him. I didn't give him enough credit in the preseason or the season preview. And rightfully so. He didn't look great in Washington, but he had a Vezina caliber season. The team looks unreal. They have the best home record in the league. And then again, for what it's worth, one of the worst road records, but they just get their doors blown off. They looked invincible after game 2. Everyone's like, well, the Oilers they are exactly what they thought we were, and they are dead in the water. Nope. 4 straight wins, and now all of a sudden LA is a total fucking dumpster fire. It is mind-boggling to me, and I feel really bad. We have a friend that's an LA Kings fan, and I haven't even messaged him yet because I wanted to give him time to recover, but I'm sure he's just beside himself wondering what the fuck this team can do to get out of the first round now. They still have not won a playoff series since they won the Stanley Cup in 2014.
Which is insane to
unbelievable. Yeah, it's so crazy. 11 years without a playoff series win, and again, the last 4 seasons to the same team is just bananas. So, look, again, I don't want to take away from what the Oilers did, especially being as shorthanded as they were, and with the goaltending struggles that they had. Even with Pickard in net, he wasn't even great. He was just good enough. So full credit to the Oilers, 100%. They battled their asses off, especially after going down 2, to just be like, fuck it, we're taking over. Boom, 4 straight wins. Good for them. But for LA, they have got to do some soul searching, and whoever they bring in, I'm hoping is going to make some wholesale changes. Because man, well, God, what a horrible last few years to Andrzej Kopitar's great career. He deserves to ride off into the sunset with some positive vibes. So we'll see if he sticks around in LA or what, but man, the Kings got to figure this out.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say at this point because I'm dumbfounded.
It's mind blowing.
It's like, I can't even have a take on this because I don't know what else can be said right now.
Yeah, it's like you don't even know where you would start because it's like this team doesn't look like it should have this much trouble in the playoffs, especially because so many guys had good year, took a step forward this year, and the group gelled so well, especially down the. I don't know. It's just weird. It's just really weird. I hope Jim Hiller stays there as the coach because I do think there's something there, but they have got to fucking figure out how to get it done in the playoffs, and if not, they have to, like I said, burn it to the ground, burn the ashes, and start fresh.
I guess we'll see where they go with it.
All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to listen to what our friends over at Xenopucks have to say. We're going to come back and we'll close the show out. But we'll close this show out by setting up everything for round 2, even though it has technically started. So we'll listen to our friends over at Xenopucks, and we'll be right back. This is the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast.
It's hockey season, and you're looking to work on your stick handling or maybe even your shot, but ice time just isn't an option for you right now. Luckily, our buddies over at Xenopucks have got you covered. They've developed an elite off-ice practice puck that, in addition to looking like the real thing, is the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck to give you that authentic feel on the end of your stick. It works better than other off-ice practice pucks on almost any surface, whether you use it on hardwood, carpet, concrete, or even asphalt. Xenopucks glide like a real puck on ice. So if you're looking to improve your game without setting foot on the ice, head over to www.xenopucks.com and get yourself a puck. Check out their merch selection and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Xenopucks.
All right, and we are back. So thanks again, as always, to Xenopucks for sponsoring our show. Always love working with these guys. So We've talked about all the bullshit around the league. We talked about all the fun and chaos that round 1 was. Now let's talk about round 2. It is already underway. We had a game already last night between the Leafs and Panthers that Toronto won, and we have a game going on right now between the Hurricanes and the Capitals. But let's preview the second round. So let's start with the game that's going on right now, Washington, Carolina. Again, these teams should both be in pretty good shape as far as health and rest. They both made pretty quick work of their first round opponents. These are both very good teams. I think goaltending is the difference here. It is no secret about how I feel about the Carolina Hurricanes and their goaltending. And again, the lack of scoring in the playoffs, that's the thing that always gets me. I just have more faith that the Capitals will find a way to put pucks in the net. And I just think Logan Thompson's a better goalie than anything Carolina can put in.
Yeah, but that being said, I've been watching this game right now.
Yeah, game 1 is not been a good start for the Caps.
Yeah, I would say we were just talking about this during the break. The Caps right now look a little flat, so I'm hoping they can turn that around in the second period. But generally speaking, yes, Logan Thompson, outstanding goalie. I think I don't want to jump the gun here, but I actually think Carolina could come away with this series.
All right, so let's hear it. So what's your official prediction on this series?
I'm gonna say Carolina in 6. I think it'll be a longer series because these are both extremely good teams.
Yeah.
But I think Carolina is going to come away with this, and it's worth noting. I think the last time they played each other, Carolina came away with it in 7 games.
Yeah, that was like their first year under Brindamore, I think.
2019.
Yeah, that was their one of their conference final years. Look, I just think the experience here favors the Caps, and I know it's not like they have a roster full of Stanley Cup winners, but I think the overall talent favors Washington a little more. Look, Carolina is a very stout defensive team. They know how to shut you down. But again, their inability to have consistent scoring in the playoffs and their god-awful goaltending situation, I just think it favors the Caps a little bit more. I'm going to go Capitals in 6. I wouldn't be surprised to see this one go 7. Look, and I've said it before, and I don't like to pick on the Canes because that's another building where the fans are just kick ass in Carolina. They are. But until the Hurricanes do something, I have no reason to believe in them to do something. You know what I mean?
I can agree with you on that. I don't know. The bottom line for me is I'm predicting Carolina, but this series neither outcome would surprise me. But I think you've made some good points with Washington having the experience. But I don't know, man. I think Carolina's just got a slight edge on them. But I don't know. We'll see. That this one could go either way. I do know this will be a longer series. I guarantee it.
Yeah, Carolina has the talent. They do. They do have the talent there that they can win this series. Again, it's just the lack of faith given previous results. And I think that's what's swaying me is my bias because of their past. So we'll see how it goes. This should be a good series, though. On paper, these teams should match up very well. Not well against each other in that they should beat the crap out of each other in one direction or the other, but they just seem relatively evenly matched. I just think the numbers favor the Caps more, but we'll see what happens. All right, Toronto and Florida. Toronto obviously has already won game 1 of this series. But the big question mark is the condition of Anthony Stolarz after the hit from Sam Bennett. I thought the hit was clean. It was unfortunate, but Bennett does not stick his elbow out. I don't want to hear that, the it was a targeted hit. I am a firm believer that, what Bennett said, look, Stoley's one of my friends. I'm not out there trying to hurt him. And I do believe that. I know Sam Bennett is not Mr. Lady Bing by any stretch, but I don't think he's out there trying to cause a brain injury to a guy that he won a Stanley Cup with. I don't in my heart of hearts believe it. The hit didn't look bad. If anything, it actually looks like Bennett kind of pulls his elbow in and doesn't stick it out. He knows where he is on the ice. He knows he's going through the crease, so you do have to be mindful. But I don't think that his hit was what caused the injury to Stolarz. I actually think it was Reinhart shot a puck that went right off his helmet, and I think that might have been what caused the damage there.
I was going to say, and I might get a little bit of shit for this, but I didn't really think the hit looked all that bad. So I was a little surprised to hear that he went to the hospital.
Like I said, I think it was because of the shot to the head he took, not the elbow.
I mean, I'm sure that didn't help it by any means.
Probably
either.
not. Yeah.
But
it might have rattled him.
To say it was targeted, look, I'm a Panthers fan. I know how Sam Bennett is. Everybody knows how Sam Bennett is. But if you think that was a targeted hit, you're just stupid. When he does something targeted, there's no denying it. It's very blatant and obvious.
He gets the red bloodshot eyes look when he's ready to go out there and hurt somebody. He gets that I'm going to kill you look on his face. And I don't believe he's doing that to a guy that he won a Stanley Cup with and a guy who's one of his friends.
Incidental contact. Yeah, exactly. And he even said it. They're very good friends. He's not going to go out there and run him over like that on purpose. It's incidental contact. Shit happens. It's an unfortunate part of the game, but it happened. It sounds like he might play still from what I was seeing before we started the show. They're saying he might play for game 2, which to me just means he's going to play game 2. So
yeah, we'll see. And if the Leafs need it, because Wold did not look great in relief. Now, granted, you haven't played in 3 weeks and all of a sudden you're thrown into a second round playoff game. I'm not expecting him to show up and be George Vezina, but he did not look outstanding. So we'll see what happens for the Leafs. As far as the series goes, everything favors the Panthers. The history between the two teams, the overall skill on both teams, they are pretty evenly matched as far as pure like offensive talent, but just the overall skill, the fact that Florida has won a cup and is still the defending champs. I just think everything in this series favors Florida. I know they lose game 1, but you can't win every game either. I actually, before the series started, I have the Panthers in 5, which now means they got to rattle off 4 in a row. But if there's a team in the league that can do it, I think it's the Panthers.
I do agree with you. Obviously, everything I say here is going to sound biased because I'm a Panthers fan as I sit here in my Blue Jackets Stadium Series jersey. But nevertheless, look, I'm not denying the talent of Toronto. I'm not denying how good of a team they are. Everybody who knows me knows that I hate the Leafs. But I'm not going to deny how good of a team they are. And honestly, right now in the East, I think if there's a team that can stop Florida, it's going to be Toronto. However, with that being said, I think it's going to be Panthers in 6 on this one. I could even see it going 7. I mean, these teams are pretty evenly matched up with each other. I think ultimately what it's going to truly come down to is goaltending in the long run. Can we see a consistent Bobrovsky? How is Anthony Stolarz going to perform under serious pressure? Game 1, you're still kind of shaking off a little rustiness from in between the series, all that good stuff. So, I mean, I feel like it's too early to call, but I'm going to stick with my guns here and support my team. Say Panthers in 6, and I say goaltending is the key factor here, no question.
I will say I'm going to double down on this because I kind of did with Dallas saying that I think they're going to win it all, but I think the Panthers win the series, but I think regardless of who wins this series, the team that wins this is going to the final. I don't think Washington or Carolina can beat either of these teams.
I'm with you 100% on that.
And I know that's going to make Caps fans and Canes fans just rip their ears off saying that they can't beat the Leafs. But listen, the Leafs have taken a step forward under Craig Berube. If they can manage to beat the Panthers, there's not a fucking snowball's chance in hell that the Canes or the fucking Capitals are stopping them. And those are both 2 really good teams. But if this group can, again, exercise some playoff demons, they win round 1, they win the Battle of Ontario. If they can win round 2, beat the Panthers, no one's stopping them. And for the Panthers, we already know they're like the best team in the league. If they handle this series, especially if they do it in 5 or 6 games, there's no way in hell I'm taking the Hurricanes or Capitals over the Panthers. So I just think this matchup for me is going to determine who goes to the final because I just don't see it being either of those 2 Metro teams.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, man. If you're Toronto, if there's going to be a year that you do it or get real fucking close, it has to be this year. I think they have to do it with the squad they have right now. But again, that's going to really rely heavily on Stolarz dialing the fuck in.
Yeah, this is it for this group because Tavares and Marner are up, and it sounds like Marner's not staying. So this is last call for them.
Right, and that's the Panthers. I have no doubt in my mind. And now I said this. I think he even said it before the playoffs started. Do I think the Panthers are going to run it all the way back this year? Absolutely not. Would I love them to? More than anything. I don't think that they're going to do it. Obviously, we know how good of a team they are, but playoffs are a different animal, man. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Toronto come away with this series, but I think, like you mentioned, the cards are in Florida's favor, and there's just no way around that, I think. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to be a nervous wreck throughout the entirety of this series until it's over, because even if the Panthers come out with a 3-1 lead, after what they did in the Stanley Cup final last year, I won't sleep until it's over.
Yeah, well, it's like Paul Maurice said, you have to lose 3 to learn how to win 4, right? So they learned how to win 4 and they did it. So have a little faith. I think they are the easy pick to win this series. It's really hard for me to see the Leafs pulling this thing out, but crazier shit's happened.
They have 2 great coaches, though. So
yeah,
I mean, Paul
this
Maurice
is a great coach
Berube.
matchup for sure. This is a fun one.
Craig Berube really pulled this team out of the depths of hell too. So
they are, yeah. No, you can see the difference in attitude and that kind of killer instinct you need to have in the playoffs. I know there was some scary moments in their series versus the Sens, but this Leafs team is definitely taking a step forward. But again, because of the contracts that are expiring, this is their only shot to do it with this exact group. So we'll see what happens. But now let's go over to the West, where we have 2 pretty good matchups as well. So we'll start with Vegas and the Oilers. This should be a fun one. I think in a lot of the ways where, it felt like the Panthers were the easy pick in their series. It feels like Vegas is the easy pick in this series. The Oilers had an unbelievable showing against the Kings, the resilience to come back just after how bad their goaltending was and falling down 2-0. And it just, they looked so defeated, and they just absolutely came back and steamrolled LA. The difference for me here is I just talked about that killer instinct you got to have in the playoffs. Vegas has that, man. Vegas, when they smell blood in the water, it's over. When they can start picking apart that banged up defensive core and get to the shaky goaltending, that's a team that's not going to let you live down your mistakes. They're going to put the puck in your net. I think Vegas wins this series very quickly. But because the Oilers showed so much heart in their last series and were able to rattle off all those wins, I'm going to give this series to Vegas in 6. I think the Oilers, again, they're clearly outmatched here, and it's tough to say a team's clearly outmatched when they have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But it seems like they're pretty clearly outmatched here. But I don't think they're going to go away easy. Even if they get filled in the games they lose, I think they're going to find a way to win a couple in this.
I'm with you on that. I'll say Vegas in 6. As far as Edmonton goes, I'll say their biggest downfall here is going to be that they don't have strong enough goaltending. I understand what Calvin Pickard came in and did against LA, but LA and Vegas are 2 completely different, completely mismatched teams for that matter. You're going from playing what turned out to be a mediocre LA team to playing an absolutely elite Vegas team, and Vegas has only ever been anything but good since the team's inception, and they only seem to get better. So I think Vegas is going to blow them out of the water in the games they do win, but I will give Edmonton a couple wins here just out of courtesy, because I don't foresee this being a sweep. I think they'll put up a good fight, but I think Vegas ultimately comes away with this.
Yeah, especially like we mentioned it earlier, Vegas turned it on in round 1 against the Wild in the last couple games. I know they got some breaks that went their way, but ultimately, again, the killer instinct thing, they had their opportunities, like again with the Hartman and the offside thing. They were able to keep that game tied because of that, and then they turn it on in overtime and pressure, and then they finally get the winner. So this is a team that knows how to win. They're a very well coached team. On paper, again, one of the best teams in the league. They can attack you so many different ways. They can all 4 lines can score. It's just as good as the Oilers are. I first of all, Vegas is light years better than LA. I don't see a route where the Oilers win this thing. And I'll tell you what, if they do, then I would be all for it. It'd be pretty cool to see the Oilers make another run at this. I just don't see it happening. So again, Vegas in 6.
Yeah, and I would love to see a Panthers Oilers rematch in the Stanley Cup
That'd
final.
Be fun.
It would
Panthers
be fun.
and Vegas rematch. Go get
that would be
go
fun.
Get your revenge.
Look, I'll tell you this too: with the teams that are left, and I'm going to take I hate to do this, but I'm going to take the Capitals. I'm going to take the Canes out of the equation. But of the teams that are left right now, any combination of those teams would be a great Stanley Cup final matchup, I think. Now, before we go into Dallas, let me know when you're ready to go into the Dallas series. And before you say anything, I have something to say. But just let me know whenever you're ready to go into that.
I was going to say, with that, I was actually ready to move on now because I think we made our points quite clear about Vegas. So, yeah, whatever you got.
All right. So, regarding this Dallas series, all I have to say is Dallas, 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 Dallas. And that's going to be my take.
Look, there's only one way the Jets get through this. Now, this won't take anything away again. They won the President's Trophy. They're very clearly a good hockey team. They're well coached. They're well structured. But we don't know the extent of the injuries to Morrissey and Scheifele, so that's huge.
Yeah.
But for me, again, even if they're fully healthy, for me, the only way the Jets win this thing is if now that they got out of the first round and broke that and kind of exercised some demons, if Connor Hellebuck can return to regular season form, that changes the complexity of this whole thing. If he stays how he was in round one, this is going to be Dallas in like 5 games. Because right now, again, the killer instinct thing, Dallas is feeling themselves. They just beat probably the favorite to win the Stanley Cup without their best defenseman, without one of their best forwards. They're feeling good about themselves. Ottinger's locked in, Rantanen's rolling. The chemistry is there for this team. The fans are into it every game. The only way the Jets stand a chance is if Hellebuck becomes like regular season Hellebuck, where nothing gets by him. That's the only chance they have. If he does, I would be happy to take the Jets in this series. But I think this one's over quick. I think this is Dallas in 5, maybe 6.
Look, I'm going to phrase it like this. And I said the same exact thing verbatim about the Bruins in 2019 when Tampa got swept by Columbus. This whole thing is Dallas's to win all the way to the Cup. It's theirs to blow at this point.
Yep.
I don't really see. Look, if Dallas goes all the way to the Cup, nobody's beating them in my book. I don't see. I know you said if Hellebuck can get back to regular season form, then they got a chance. I don't foresee that happening. I think he's going to get lit up, and I'm not trying to take a dig at the guy because I really do love Connor Hellebuck. But I don't see. I'm saying this is a sweep in my book. I'm sorry, but I think Dallas is going to.
I don't know. That's a take if I've heard one. A sweep.
Well, hey man. Well, I guess we'll see where we're sitting on the next episode. But I'm going to say Dallas is going to sweep them, man. I just don't. Other than Game 7, I wasn't impressed by Winnipeg, and I know both those teams won every home game.
I was very impressed with the Jets the first 2 games, and then the last 5 minutes in overtime in Game 7. But they showed flat. I think a sweep. That's a hot take. That's a hot take.
We'll call it a hot take, but I'm going to stand on it, man. I'm saying Dallas in 4.
All right. Well, that's the take then. So
watch it be Winnipeg in 7.
Watch it be Winnipeg in 4. Can you imagine?
Dude, but let me tell you something. God. If it's Winnipeg in 4, I'm never getting on this show ever again.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. But ultimately, these last few series here, as we get closer and closer to the end of the playoffs, are going to be crazy. I just want to say again, with the sun officially set on round 1 too, my biggest takeaways from round 1, the officiating is just so bad. It's just so bad. It is so bad. All fans of all the teams that were in the playoffs, all 16 teams that made it, dude, everybody had legitimate gripes about the officiating. There were so many missed calls every game. And I know it's a different game in the playoffs and the refs call things a little different, but blatant cross checks to the face, guys being tackled, 2-hand holds, just stupid crap every game. Everybody had legitimate gripes with the officials, and it's just exhausting because these guys are impacting the game in ways that they are not supposed to.
Yeah. Well, we've bitched about officiating on this show more times than I can count.
And we always will. And you know what? I don't feel bad about it, and I will always do it until we get robot officials.
Well,
let's get robot umpires in baseball too.
Yeah. Oh, I am all for that. But nevertheless, that won't happen in hockey.
No, it won't. But we'll keep making fun of them because they deserve it, and they don't have to face the media after each game when they make all these shitty calls. So we'll use the platform in any way we can to remind them that we're watching.
All right, so I think we're in agreement here. Well, no, we're not in the conference final because you say Washington and I say Carolina. So I'm saying for the Eastern Conference, I've got Florida versus Carolina, and in the West, I've got Dallas versus Vegas. Yours is going to be the same, except you'll have Florida versus Washington.
Washington, correct.
So
Correctamundo. So it was again a great first round, though, man. Those game sevens were unbelievable. Some of the best hockey I think we've seen in a long time. I'm excited for round 2. I want all 4 of these series to go to a game 7. That would be exciting.
It would be great, but things are getting ready to heat up right now, and I know we're done with the first round, but we're just getting started. So buckle the hell in because these playoffs are only going to get more intense.
That's right.
So, do you have anything else before I send us home?
No, that's it. Thanks again for tuning in, and as far as I know, we will be back on Sunday with some more playoffs in the book. I'm excited, man. I can't wait, dude. This is getting really exciting to go down to just 8 teams now.
I'm excited too, man. I know you and I are going to watch a lot of hockey together moving forward. Everybody that's listening to this, like I said, things are heating up. We're looking forward to this ride, and we hope you'll hang around and join us for it. If you want to, give us a follow on our social media. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Both are at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. And you can follow us on TikTok if you'd like as well, at Fresh Ice Pod. If you'd like to send us a question for us to read on the show, or you just have any input you want us to read on the show, you can email us, freshicehockeypodcast@gmail.com, or contact at freshicehockeypodcast.com. Round 2 is underway. We'll see how she goes. Stick around, and we'll see you guys next week.
And a special birthday shout out to my wife, who's going to be celebrating the big 3-0 here tomorrow.
You know what? I almost walked out of here without saying that. Happy birthday to my amazing sister-in-law. We're going to do everything in our power to make it a good one. With that being said, we'll see you guys on Sunday. Take care and comb your hair.